A mother of 4 gone missing, then found murdered.
It's the Karen Swift story, the woman last seen alive at a Halloween party, and was a second woman also in danger. An all-new 2020 starts right now.
It was a really big deal. This beautiful blonde-headed lady comes up missing after a Halloween party.
It was just supposed to be a fun night out, adults only.
What's the overall view of this young mom who suddenly goes missing?
People liked Karen, they liked being around her.
Tonight, the shocking trial and the ex-wife you'll only see on 2020.
This is a man I was married to that I shouldn't have been afraid of.
But what about his first wife?
My mom was going out more, which made me start to question why.
When they found Karen's vehicle, it had a badly damaged flat tire.
It appears that this screw was mainly inserted into the tire.
It was literally screwed into the tire. So this is where you found the smashed cell phones?
In this area here.
Not one, but 2 smashed phones.
I thought maybe somebody saw her walking and grabbed her.
She doesn't hold back. I can see Karen going over there and letting him have it.
This case is wild, to put it mildly. It's wild because the circumstances are just so unique.
Karen Swift's Halloween costume was a very sexy black costume.
Black skirt, black tights, black shoes, and she had a black, kind of a Mardi Gras type mask that she was wearing.
I think she was supposed to be a cat. She had a skirt on. It was very form-fitting.
So it was va-va-voom.
It was.
What began as an innocent night of Halloween partying was just the beginning of a tragic story that would engulf not only Karen Swift, but her whole family and almost everyone in this close-knit community.
There was going to be a costume party on October 29th of 2011. It was held at a place that here in Dyersburg that's called The Farms. It's a country club that's attached to the golf course.
Dyersburg, Tennessee is just a small hamlet in western Tennessee. It's not far from the Mississippi River.
Dyersburg is a small, very closely knit town. Everybody pretty much knows everybody.
I think the majority of the population still has that old Southern hospitality, kind of greet everybody, wave. If you know somebody when you're driving down the road, you wave to them.
There's only 38,000 people here. Most people have grown up here, lived here their whole lives.
And I think that you take the word of mouth and you add the social media aspect to it now, and everyone is almost always in everyone else's business.
44-year-old Karen Swift marries husband David in 1989. Originally from Arkansas, they moved to Dyersburg, Tennessee with their family about 2 decades later in 2008.
When I first moved to Tennessee, I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It was very peaceful, and getting to know all my new friends and, meet new people was fun.
They didn't know anyone in Dyer County, and they made the move here, apparently for the schools. There are some good schools in this area.
Together, David and Karen Swift had 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 younger girls, including their daughter Ashley.
Growing up, my mom was very involved. She loved taking us to sports, dance, cheer. She just had that very caring and nurturing personality.
She was just a wonderful mother. She would do anything for her children. They were number one in her life. They came before anything else.
Karen was always kind of a fun-loving, bubbly type of personality. Tried to, even when things were not going particularly well, tried to keep a positive attitude.
Her friends really liked her, and she had a lot of friends. So she was someone who was beautiful, someone who appeared to be happy with her life, and things appeared to be going very well for her.
Karen was outgoing, gregarious. She made friends very easily. People liked Karen. They liked being around her.
And on this cool, clear October night, Karen was headed out with her friends, while her daughter Ashley, who was 9 at the time, was heading to a sleepover at her friend's house.
I remember I was staying at a friend's house, and my mom was going to a Halloween party with some of her friends, and my dad was going to stay home with my sister.
Karen Swift went to the Halloween party with Bill Bona and Kathy Bona.
The party was hosted by 15 to 20 different couples. The women kind of did all the decorations, put everything together. The guys just kind of showed up.
And it was just supposed to be a fun night out. Adults only, dress up, have fun in a costume, and just socialize with one another. Karen arrived at the Halloween party probably around 8 or a little after 8 p.m.
That night, Karen was in a pretty good mood. I mean, she was able to go out on the dance floor and talk to different people. People were drinking, having a good time. Music was playing. People were out dancing. Karen was walking around, talking to several people. I remember seeing her on the dance floor at least one time.
And she left with Bill and Kathy Bona probably around midnight that night. And they went to McDonald's to get some French fries.
So they went through the McDonald's drive-thru and then went home to Kathy and Bill Bona's house.
While they're at Bill and Kathy's house, she gets a call from her daughter, Ashley.
When we were starting to go to bed, I decided that I wanted to go home. I called my mom and asked her to come get me.
Karen immediately told Kathy, I've got to go, my baby's sick, I'm going to go pick her up. So she did. She left, she went and picked up her daughter at a friend's house and then went home.
By now, of course, it's around 1:30 in the morning, the next day, October 30th. On her way home, Karen texts her husband, David, to let him know she's heading back to their house.
When she told him about going to pick up Ashley, he sent her a text response about the garage door is closed, come in the side door.
And then they arrived back at the Swift home around 2 a.m. that morning.
Karen goes to sleep downstairs, while her husband David is sleeping in a different bedroom upstairs.
David did not get up until the next morning around 10 or 10:30 when the girls woke him up.
It's now that the Swift family's entire world turns upside down.
The next morning, Karen was not at home. The girls were the first ones, according to David, to tell him that their mother was missing.
Remember, Karen and Ashley had returned home around 2 in the morning and went to sleep. But now it seems that sometime after that, Karen had somehow disappeared.
Between the time of probably 10 and 11 o'clock, Kathy Bona, her friend, had been trying to call her. David Swift, her husband, had been trying to call her. And so now people are starting to get seriously worried that something's happened to her.
After Bill and Kathy Bona didn't get a response from her, they kind of said, well, something's not right. So they called David and asked him, where is Karen? And then they called the sheriff's office and said that she was missing.
Shortly after that, David made a phone call to the sheriff's department and reported that his wife was missing.
Karen's disappearance quickly became a mystery, and it would begin with the discovery of her abandoned car, a key piece of evidence that transforms this from a missing persons case into something far more sinister.
So she shows up missing. There was a lot of different theories about what was going on. There were many clouds of suspicion. It was a really big deal. This beautiful blonde-headed lady, mother of 4, comes up missing after a Halloween party. Everybody was talking about it.
The morning of Karen's disappearance, her car is discovered less than a half-mile away from her home.
At the corner of Millsfield Highway and Harness in Dyer County is where the broken down SUV of 44-year-old Karen Swift was found.
I saw the car sit there for a day or so.
Karen's gone, and that's what's important, and we just want her to come back.
You could walk to it. It wasn't that far away on the highway, and it was there with a flat tire. So that's a clue. Her car's there.
Karen's vehicle was on the side of the road on Millsfield Highway right next to Harness Road. That's the road that Karen had lived on. Karen was not there.
It was in a normal state. It was parked on the side of the road. It had a flat tire to the right side. And the investigation revealed that it was a screw in the tire.
Why would her car be up there? If she had come home, there was no one who said Karen walked home from up on the highway. So it would appear that Karen had left, but it wasn't very far for her to suddenly get a flat tire either.
Investigators believe that the tire had been manually deflated and that the screw had been intentionally inserted into the tire. Which begs the question, did somebody put it there on purpose to leave Karen stranded?
When we observed the car, we noticed a screw in the tire. If you look at this very closely, it appears that this screw was manually inserted into the tire.
It was literally screwed into the tire.
Literally screwed into the tire. And my theory was right once we sent it off for forensic analysis. It was manually placed in that tire.
And I wanted you to show me this screw. This is one that you actually ran over.
This is a screw I actually ran over in my patrol unit that went all the way up in the tire. And you can see where it was on the road.
Yeah. A lot of friction.
A lot of friction. This screw has no friction.
The lack of friction making investigators believe the screw hadn't been driven on. But how could that be?
They had not been in Dyer County that long because they had moved there. Karen's from Pocahontas, Arkansas, which is about 2 hours from Dyersburg. And it was about 4 years later that she disappeared.
The Swifts seemed to have a great life in Pocahontas. They were young and in love and devoted parents, as their friend Holly Sutton tells us.
We met through just public school and ended up being fast friends. They were excellent parents. They had rules. They were fairly strict. They did everything with their children.
We moved ultimately for my dad's job to Tennessee. It was just a better opportunity. I enjoyed it. It was very peaceful. I do think she was happy. I think that she wasn't necessarily fully herself in Tennessee.
Karen wasn't acting like herself, and turns out there was a reason for it. Strains on their marriage, David's new job as a manager at a manufacturing plant, and Karen's apparent change in lifestyle in Dyersburg worried those closest to her.
She had just mentioned to me that it was very different. She just said that, she says, I don't know that you would like it here. But she did say that she was meeting people and getting out.
I was used to her tucking me into bed every night or being home every night, getting up with her and going to the gym, and that kind of slowly stopped the longer that we lived in Tennessee.
That was not their lifestyle in Pocahontas. They didn't even social drink. We didn't need that. It was hard to hear because that was not them.
As soon as she went missing, it was Chief McCright's supposition that David, at the very least, had something to do with it.
And we finally just decided that, hey, he's going to be the only person that can really help us in this case to tell us about where his wife might have gone.
If you have a seat for me right over there.
He came in and gave my guys an interview. That interview didn't go very well, we didn't think.
And I said, so are you going to a costume party, or what are you doing? Are you all having a party? And she said, no, I'm just going to Kathy's. I said, well, okay.
He really wasn't concerned to me about where she might have gone.
Okay, was there any kind of argument or anything then?
No, I just, it was very brief. I wanted to make sure that Ashley was okay and that she was okay, because I questioned Karen about driving and getting her. I said, you know, if you can't drive, I won't get Ashley. And that was all the conversation was.
Okay. How close did you get to her? Could you tell whether she'd been drinking or not?
Oh yeah, you could tell. I could always smell she drinking, you know.
He was saying, like, you know, that she drank and she was pretty much an alcoholic.
Although drunk and been drinking, and she was so drunk once that she was had passed out. He was just so drunk that Sharon was drinking so much that.
So that was just, you know, I should, as a husband, be concerned about where is my wife.
If you had to use an estimated guess right now, where do you think she is?
I don't know. I'm so worried about her.
I would say my dad's reaction was, he was obviously very worried, but you have to think I was 9 and my sister was 5, so I think he was trying to put on a very brave face for us.
As the search for Karen Swift continues, investigators are reminded of a horrible incident Karen had with a neighbor just months before.
There was an issue where John Hogshooter had poisoned a couple of dogs in the neighborhood. One of the dogs belonged to David and Karen Swift.
Anybody who has a dog and they say their neighbor poisoned their dog, that would certainly be bad blood.
She doesn't hold back. If she feels that she's got something to say, she's going to say it.
A suspect emerges for investigators. As the search for Karen Swift continues, investigators cast a wide net for suspects and leads.
There was a man that she had met at a concert about 20 miles from Dyersburg across the Mississippi River.
It never grew into a full romantic relationship. It was more of an acquaintance. I think they talked on the phone a few times, maybe sent text messages back a few times, but it never developed any further than that.
His last text to Karen was, she told him that she was at the Halloween party, hanging out with some friends. And his last text was something essentially, great, text me sometime, I'd love to take you out to dinner. And we quickly concluded that, you know, obviously it didn't sound like somebody who was obsessed, and he was ruled out as a suspect.
Found out where he was at the time of her disappearance, and that alibi checked out.
But investigators have another possible lead to follow as they learn of a terrible conflict between Karen Swift and one of her neighbors.
John Hogshooter lived across the road, diagonal from their residence.
Catty-cornered, probably not more than 150 feet from their home.
Mr. Hogshooter had previously had a criminal matter charged against him regarding some sort of issue with one of their dogs.
He had gained some notoriety in the neighborhood. He's kind of a rough around the edges fella, generally.
There was an issue where John Hogshooter had poisoned a couple of dogs in the neighborhood, and one of the dogs belonged to David and Karen Swift.
He put some poison, some sort of poison concoction out on his property. One of the Swift's dogs got into the poison and was also sickened. The Swift's dogs did not die.
On October 7th, Karen actually went to this man's house to confront him about her dog being poisoned. John was eventually charged with animal cruelty in that case, and he actually pleaded guilty.
While one neighborhood dog did die from the poisoning, the Swift dog managed to survive after being rushed to the vet and having its stomach pumped, the incident creating bad blood between the neighbors.
Anybody who owns a dog and they say their neighbor poisoned their dog, that would certainly be bad blood.
I know Karen and the Hogshooter guy, I knew of the fight they'd had.
She doesn't hold back. She doesn't hold back. Like, if she feels that she's got something to say, she's going to say it.
When she was missing, he became one of the first suspects that the sheriff's department looked at.
Investigators want to talk to John Hogshooter. He'd been poisoning neighborhood dogs, including Karen's. They bring him into this interrogation room, and they have some questions to ask.
Generally, what I want to talk to you about, I'm going to just shoot straight from the hip. Are you aware of what's going on out there where you live?
Yeah, I'm well aware of what's going on out there.
What I'm trying to do is clear people. And And I know that the incident that happened with the dogs out there, I know all, about that because of the prior investigator that had been working that case. What I'm trying to do is find out your whereabouts on the 30th from that Saturday.
We interviewed John and asked him that he, of course, we've interviewed about the dogs, but we wanted to know, did he know Karen?
His memories of Karen Swift differs from what others have said about the tension between the two of them.
What we want to do is make sure you had no involvement in Karen's disappearance.
I don't know. The only way I even seen a picture of this lady is my wife showed me a picture of her. I was like, oh, is that what she looks like? Mm-hmm. The only other time I've ever seen her is out mowing her grass in the summertime from my house.
Had he ever had any contact with Karen? Had he spoken with her? What kind of involvement had he ever had with Karen or David or anybody else in that neighborhood?
I go up there and talk to him and sit out on the porch. From that area, from my house or his house, is the only time I've ever seen that lady. Out there mowing the yard. She's in a bikini, what do you think? Everybody's gonna be like,
right, I understand.
We're men,
You're a man, you're gonna look at her, ain't you?
Yeah, but just like, yeah, she's in a bikini up there, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And that's the only time I've ever seen her.
And he said no, he just saw her at one time out in the yard, and, like a neighbor waved or something to the nature of that.
When did you find out that this woman was missing? When did you know about it?
I would say probably somewhere in the middle of the week.
This past week?
Yeah, or whenever she came up missing, probably in the middle of the week.
Somebody tell you, or you see it on the news, or?
How did I find out? Maybe it might. Well, I don't have TV, so I don't watch TV, so I don't know how I found out. My wife may have told me, or I don't remember. I think because I honestly don't know.
As soon as they started talking to him, he was extremely cooperative.
Where is my truck?
It's locked up and impounded in an enclosed building.
They impounded his vehicle. They got a search warrant, searched his house.
What I'm trying to say, if we want to look at your house, I'd rather for you not to go home before we got there. That's what I'm saying.
Well, my clothes and stuff, I washed my clothes over at my daughter's house, so all my clothes, I'll probably go over there and take a shower and get my clothes for sure. I can't even get in because my keys in the truck. There's a gold key in where the ashtray thing goes right there. There's a gold key. That's the only way I can get in and get my clothes to.
Okay.
He's very relaxed. He wasn't tense about it. It was obvious that, he wasn't nervous. I thought it was a good interview.
There was no evidence in the end that pointed that John Hogshuter had any knowledge of this at all.
But then investigators find Karen Swift's 2 cell phones, almost totally destroyed, near the property of John Hogshuter.
Finding these 2 phones very close to John's property was very concerning for the police.
When we discovered the phones, they were damaged. They were crushed. Somebody might have stomped them and then pitched them there.
So you've got the investigators. They don't know where Karen Swift is. They know she's missing. Her phone was not in her car. They didn't see it around the car, so they start searching for the phone.
So we decided we were going to do a grid from where her car was found back to the house.
So this is where you found the smashed cell phones?
In this area here, the phones were found.
Yeah.
They found 580-something feet from their driveway, from Karen's driveway to this location.
A highway patrolman comes across not 1, but 2 smashed phones.
This is images of them, right? They were shattered.
That phone was shattered before it even went there, because if you had thrown it in that grass, you would never got this damage to this phone.
But as close to the Swifts' home as the phones are, they're also very close to John Hogshuter's home. That neighbor, the Swifts say they had a confrontation with.
Finding those 2 phones within proximity of John Hogshuter's house raises many, many questions for investigators in this case, for obvious reasons.
Investigators found out that Hog Shooter was at this church event.
We knew where he was on her day of disappearance, and we were able to establish his alibi.
There was no evidence in the end that pointed that John Hogshooter had any knowledge of this at all.
A thorough investigation was done, and he had alibi witnesses, and we were able to pretty quickly eliminate him as a suspect.
With Hog Shooter cleared, the investigation continues. At this point, the most important unanswered question, where is Karen?
Some people just walk away from their lives. It happens all the time. Without a body, they don't know that a crime's been committed.
We constantly relied on getting them to the media. Of course, the sheriff would make press releases, social media. Everybody knew that we were trying to locate her.
There's a landmark in Dyer County, and it's a large cross where you can see it from a good distance. And near that, within a few hundred feet, is a cemetery.
Bledsoe Cemetery is very spread out. Some of the headstones there are over 100 years old and even older. It's a very rural area. A local pastor and a congregant were in Bledsoe Cemetery on December 10th examining overturned headstones. And as they're surveying this type of damage, they notice a human body part coming out of some kudzu bushes.
Karen Swift has been missing for 6 weeks at this point. The police arrive and head to this nearby area full of kudzu.
Kudzu, they're vines, and kudzu can cover everything. It can cover very large trees and hang down. Kudzu can cover everything that it crawls across, and it crawls across almost everything.
And this is the kudzu that was...
This is the kudzu area. And all of this was in kudzu. Every bit of this was in kudzu.
So it was hiding everything here?
Yes, and the body was found somewhere in this area, maybe near that tree stump.
The body was so badly decomposed, it was hard to tell how long it had been there. One thing was very clear, though. There was almost no way that this person just wandered off and somehow found themselves underneath these bushes and then somehow died.
They certainly have an indication that it's a female, but they're not positive that it's Karen Swift.
The body was found with just undergarments on.
Yes.
What does that tell you?
Well, it lets me know that she did not leave the house dressed like that.
The body is sent to the medical examiner, and dental records make the identification official. It is indeed Karen Swift.
We went to the home to make the death notification. And we told David that we had found Karen. And his very words were, "You found it." You know, and we all, like, we found your wife, Karen. You found it.
I don't have any audio or statement that backs that up, but I don't know that that statement proves anything. I know that the officer was trying to make something of that, but it's, in my opinion, not an admission or anything other than you found it.
The 44-year-old's body was found near Bledsoe Cemetery, just 2 miles from her Dyer County home. Police identified Swift's body Sunday using dental records. They're not saying how she was murdered. No suspects have been named.
Maybe it was just my dad who sat me down and told me that they found my mom, but I remember my dad being kind of very calm. He explained it in a way of mom's not coming back home and this is a new reality. And I think that he was trying to say it in the best way possible, but there's not really a best way possible to say that.
It was one of those days where you just go numb and you just cannot believe that this is what it came to and why.
I was very upset when her body was found because of the kids and also David. and he was wondering what in the world could have happened.
I thought maybe, maybe somebody saw her walking and, grabbed her or things like that. But the more I thought about it, I thought there had to be a little bit more to it.
The autopsy revealed that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. One thing that we were not able to tell was whether there was strangulation involved.
Investigators may not be certain how, but they are now convinced Karen Swift was murdered. As they try to figure out who did it, what did they find under a spare tire? As investigators in Dyersburg look into what is now a murder case, they learn some messy details about Karen and David Swift's marriage. Remember, they had moved here to Tennessee from Pocahontas, Arkansas.
Karen and David met in Pocahontas. They got married in 1989. Karen and David had what could be best described as a tumultuous marriage.
I know that maybe there was some affairs going on in Arkansas.
He ended up having a marital affair with this lady, and a child was born as a result of that affair, and they divorced at that time.
For a lot of couples, that might have been the end, but David and Karen are able to reconcile. They're divorced for only about 7 months when they remarry in 2000 and continue raising their 2 sons together.
And so then David and Karen go on and have their daughters Ashley and Keely. Now, sometime in the mid-2000s, Karen has an affair. David finds out. He forgives her for this. They reportedly move on.
He decided to quickly move the family to Dyersburg.
So it's David and Karen living in the new house with 3 of their 4 younger children. The oldest son was now in college.
He felt like if they didn't get away from the problem they were having in Arkansas, their marriage would never work. And it did, I mean, they had alone for quite some time, and then things went from bad to worse.
That's because once the couple moves from Arkansas to Tennessee, more problems spring up. Karen makes new friends, and David and Karen have very different views about what happened next.
It didn't seem like David was happy with those friends, and they weren't especially happy with David either.
It was clear that once she started this friendship with these new friends, that she was moving away from David.
It was midnight. I heard her sneaking out of the house.
He talked about it in that police interview.
I've seen nights that she would speed down the drive and Ashley's chasing after her and stuff, not wanting her to leave and go out at night.
It did get to a point where I feel like there was a little bit of shift in my family, and my mom was going out more, which made me start to question why.
As investigators learn details about what was going on, questions are raised about the nature of David's behavior towards Karen and if his alleged behavior crossed a line.
When David got upset is when Karen would be absent from the house.
He wanted to know where she was.
He would wake up, she would be gone, and he would get out to see where she was at.
David might be following her, but to him, it made perfect sense. He told people he had reason to worry about her and their kids. And his attorney says he thought she might be cheating on him.
If it's late at night and your kids are in bed and you're home after a work day, you might understand why somebody would say, hey, what's going on? Or can I ask you some questions?
I think David just wanted his wife to be at home where she should be with him and the kids. She claimed it was controlling. I don't think so.
But Karen let it be known she had had enough. She wanted another divorce.
Karen wanted to file for divorce because she felt David was too controlling of her
Frankly, if we had to go to court, the inappropriate marital conduct would have been what I would refer to as kind of a stalkish behavior.
But Karen doesn't have enough money of her own to file for divorce, so her good friends, Bill and Kathy Bona, loan her the cash. Not only that, the Bonas say they gave Karen a second phone to use to get around her husband, to talk to her divorce lawyer.
Karen told me that she had a secondary phone, that the number that she was talking to me on was a secondary phone, and she did not want him to know that she was calling and talking to me about a potential divorce.
Investigators understand why they found those two smashed and discarded phones.
She was afraid to be present when he was served. It was a substantial amount of money that she was asking for, so I think that had a big impact on David when he received that.
And in the meantime, the couple continues to live together in the same house.
She was living downstairs, and David was sleeping upstairs.
I didn't notice anything different, you know. We all went about our business.
She chose to live in the home. And my take on it was that she wasn't afraid of him. She didn't ask for order of protection because there had been no issues of physical violence.
David continued to say things to Karen, wanting to call the divorce off.
He wasn't happy about the divorce.
To prosecutors, the possible divorce and the issues in the marriage are reaching a boiling point.
I believe that he had the attitude they had reconciled before or had problems before, and perhaps they could just talk through it and continue on with their life.
And he said she wasn't having it. He said there was just no way.
Was it enough of a motive for murder? Investigators had some evidence, including those smashed cell phones found here. And there were those divorce papers that David seemed to have hidden under the spare tire in his car.
This here is not adding up, because if I'm getting a divorce, why do I need to hide them in a car, in the trunk, under a spare tire?
I don't have an explanation if he had just stuck them there or if he had inadvertently set them there.
It was only 20 days after she filed for divorce that Karen went missing.
To investigators, it's a lot of smoke. But the truth is, there is simply no hard evidence linking David Swift to the crime. And the district attorney general in office at the time is not willing to charge him.
I think he was concerned that you only get one chance to try the case.
For more than a decade, the town wonders, is there a killer walking free? Then in 2022, finally, an arrest. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. And I got a chance to talk to that man from behind bars. Did you ever feel like you had a cloud of suspicion over you? Am I talking with the killer? And another woman emerges with a harrowing account. How would what she says affect the Karen Swift case?
The night that Karen was last seen, she went to a Halloween party.
I mean, the body was here for a month.
Undetected.
They investigated and they investigated, and everyone was like, when are you going to find a suspect?
The story of the same man, but two different women. One of them killed, one of them claiming she was stalked.
And there he was, in my backyard, in the middle of the night. This is too much.
The exclusive interview you'll only see on 2020.
They told me that my dad got arrested, and in that moment I was like, for what?
How big a deal was this trial in Dyersburg?
This trial was huge.
They didn't compare the fingerprints. They had tunnel vision.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
This is a man I was married to that I shouldn't have been afraid of. Then why is this happening?
Today we've intensified our search. We have combed through the areas again.
Karen Swift is a 44-year-old housewife, mother of 4 in Dyersburg, Tennessee, and she disappears in October 2011. Her car turns up not far from her house.
Car was locked, secured. There was no signs of foul play in the vehicle.
It was puzzling. I really didn't know. I didn't know what to think.
So after Karen goes missing, the police talk to her husband, David.
I just wanted her to come home.
And they learn that there are serious problems in the Swift marriage.
Well, have you filed for divorce?
She filed on the 5th.
6 weeks after she disappears.
The body was found somewhere in this area, maybe near that tree stump.
Karen Swift has been found. Police identified Swift's body using dental records.
For the Dyer County Sheriff's Office, this case turns into a murder investigation. But they don't have enough evidence against Karen Swift's husband, David, or anyone else for that matter, to make an arrest. For more than a decade, there seems to be a question that lingers in the air in this town. Will Karen Swift ever get justice?
That came up.
And in 2018, promising to look at the case again, Danny Goodman is elected as the new District Attorney General. Later, the sheriff hands the entire case file over to him.
And we, of course, had a regular caseload. It wasn't something that we could just drop our normal caseload and start going through.
By then, David Swift has left town. He has a whole new life and a new wife, Kelly Essman.
Single Christians, good news. At ChristianMingle.com.
I met David on Christian Mingle in January of 2014, and we dated for about 2.5 years, and then he moved to Alabama when we got married.
My relationship with my dad during this time period was very good. He made sure that we still had as normal as a childhood as we could, even into our teenage years, you know.
He did start telling me a little bit about Karen and the fact that she had come up missing. He actually asked me to run a background check on him, and the background check comes up clean. You know, none of the news stories showed that he was a person of interest. They didn't say that he was a suspect. It was okay.
I think they had a wonderful relationship. Everybody got along.
It may have started out that way, but Kelly says cracks started to form in the marriage over parenting issues. And she says David never wanted to discuss her concerns. Over the years, she says it grew worse and worse.
There were challenges, and with all blended families, there are, you know, and that's where it started going downhill. We both went to therapy. So I finally just decided I can't go back. This is too much. He finally said that he would file for divorce.
But they have no idea that back in Dyersburg, there's been a break in the Karen Swift investigation, thanks to something completely unrelated, the COVID pandemic.
It was actually good for this case, because at that time we were not allowed to have in-person court. We were not allowed to have jury trials, so we had a lot of time that was just downtime in the office.
We were alone in the office for, I want to say it was around 6 weeks. Looked at every page that was compiled by the Sheriff's Department.
And that's how the case basically was rejuvenated, and we started back with a lot more detail looking into it.
We just basically came to the same conclusion that, yes, David Swift did it.
We noticed maybe that there were a few things that we would like to have to prosecute the case that were not there.
In particular, they say they want information stored on Karen Swift's cell phones, found smashed not far from her home. After a year of trying, experts can't recover that data, but prosecutors say they do come up with more digital evidence from David Swift's computer.
In the days and weeks after Karen vanished, they found that her husband had been visiting all of these multiple dating sites. Why is David looking at dating sites when she hasn't even been found?
David Swift's lawyer claims other people in the house may have been using that computer and accessing those sites. The prosecutors decide they have enough to take the case to a grand jury. David Swift is indicted.
We would never take a case to trial that we did not feel like we could be successful with prosecution. And at that point, we felt that we could.
An arrest has finally been made in the 2011 murder of Karen Swift.
David Swift was arrested today in Alabama, where he was living with his new wife.
David Swift is charged with premeditated first-degree murder.
He was shocked.
Swift is brought back to Tennessee, where he later pleads not guilty to first and second-degree murder and manslaughter. The sheriff posts on Facebook, "Today is a good day for law enforcement." David was always a suspect because all the evidence points to him.
Certainly it was enough evidence to take him into custody and bring it to trial.
Every rumor, every piece of information that came in, we followed up. No one else had a motive. No one else had the opportunity, and he had all of those things.
They told me that my dad got arrested, and in that moment I was like, for what?
What could they possibly have that they arrested him for? Something that happened so long ago.
I think they just wanted to make an arrest to say, we got somebody, because they were getting so much flack from people.
There was nothing groundbreaking, no scientific evidence or anything other than what was in the file. Now, I'm not saying that Danny Goodman or his office did anything unethical or improper, but sometimes when pressure is applied or pressure is present in a situation, decisions get made, and we just disagreed with his decision to charge David Swift.
I remember getting that first phone call from him after he was in the jail, and I remember his first words weren't, you know, they weren't about him, they were about us, and that everything was going to be okay.
I spoke to David Swift in a jailhouse interview. David, because this is the moment to clear the record, did you kill your wife?
No, absolutely not. She wasn't afraid of me one bit. We never had no domestics, no violence.
Because of the pending criminal charges, Swift says he couldn't talk about the details of the case, but he denied any violence in the marriage. So you said no domestics, meaning you never hurt Karen?
Never.
Never raised a hand to her?
Never. And on no female, ever. And I sure wouldn't do it to my wife or the mother of my children. But, you know, I loved her. And I still love, you know, her today.
But before he goes on trial, accused of killing Karen, a truly shocking development. New details emerge about David Swift's alleged behavior with another woman. And he faces another criminal charge. Weeks after David Swift is arrested and charged with his wife Karen's murder, he's released after posting a $200,000 bond. But in a truly wild turn of events, Swift's legal troubles follow him home to Alabama, where he faces accusations of stalking, this time from his estranged second wife, Kelly Essman.
I was not afraid of David during the marriage. Towards the end of my marriage, I was not necessarily afraid of him. After I separated, there were periods of time when he would call me, asking me, you know, where are you going? You know, I would tell him Hobby Lobby or, you know, just a Target or whatever. And he always seemed to be calling exactly when I would be going to that place.
After David's arrest, Kelly claims she found proof that she was being followed and filed for an emergency restraining order.
Kelly alleges that in the midst of all of this turmoil with David, that she came into some information that he actually had purchased a tracking device.
And right then I knew. That's how he knew where I was going. So I knew there's a tracking device somewhere on my car. And we did find the tracking device.
Kelly also claims in her motion that David started reaching out to her, sending repeated messages via text and email.
I repeatedly asked him to stop, It started with us trying to work out the details of the divorce, but it turned into a lot of random harassing emails on various topics.
Kelly files for that emergency restraining order, reporting that she was afraid for her safety, that she believed she may be in danger, and that David's stalking and harassment had become egregious. The judge made no findings on those claims, but the restraining order was granted.
I wanted him to leave me alone. That's all I wanted, just leave me alone.
Even with this new wife that he had and got a divorce, his MO was the same, following her around there in Alabama.
Karen and her friends and family said that David often would follow Karen around, that he was monitoring where she was at, that David would call her.
He even told us he followed her to a local store and got into the back of the car.
As for Kelly, she filed a police report after she claimed David's alleged harassment continued. In coordination with Alabama authorities, investigators back in Tennessee check up on what David Swift has been doing.
When he was put on a bond, the judge allowed an ankle monitor to be put on him. That brought to light data showing that he had been to her house on several occasions and following her.
And the sergeant calls me, and I'm like, how's that possible? That he knew where I was going. And he said that we think he's got a tracking device on your car. And I'm like, again?
Police pore over Kelly's car looking for a tracking device. They don't find one, but Kelly says she does find something chilling on her security camera system,
which 2020 was able to obtain.
I pulled up the feed from that night, and there he was in my backyard in the middle of the night. He had to drive 40 minutes one way to get to my house. And that one of the times he saw him at my house was in the middle of the night for an hour and a half. When I see the video, that's when I become very confused, fearful. And why is this happening? Why is he doing it? I didn't give him any reason to. This is a man I was married to. That I shouldn't have been afraid of.
David's charged with felony stalking in Alabama, and his bond in the Karen Johnson Swift murder case was revoked.
Things moved pretty quickly after that. After they got the indictment, they arrested David Swift. There are pictures of him getting in the car.
With his bond revoked, Swift is brought into custody and sent to Tennessee.
He's been charged with stalking down there. They're going to handle those charges once we dissolve this case here.
David Swift has yet to enter a plea to the stalking charge. His lawyer handling the case hasn't responded to 2020's request for comment. With Swift sitting in jail, attention turns back to his fast-approaching trial for Karen's murder. The case is big news in a small town, and both the prosecution and the defense are about to pull back the curtain on the Swifts' private lives.
Did anyone have no clothes on in the hot tub?
What exactly was going on at those hot tub parties? And what did they have to do with Karen's case?
A man accused of killing his wife more than a decade ago is back in Tennessee. We'll bring you inside of the courtroom as both sides prepare for trial.
News of David Swift's trial puts Dyersburg on the map in a way locals have never seen.
When there was finally an arrest in Karen's case, you had TV crews, newsprint media, all these people flooding in to Dyersburg.
How big a deal was this trial in Dyersburg?
This trial was huge. It was high profile. It's been the #1 trial of public interest in Dyersburg.
Interestingly, Karen Swift's murder trial doesn't take place here in Dyer County, Tennessee. Instead, a judge issues a change of venue, and David Swift is tried for murder 50 miles from here in Weakley County, Tennessee. As opening statements begin, the prosecution makes it clear that there is no smoking gun against David Swift.
You are not going to see fingerprint analysis. You're not going to see ballistic testing. We will, however, give you several pieces of a puzzle. And when we get through giving you all of those, we think that we're going to have a complete picture. We knew that a jury would want to see some type of weapon that was used for the murder. And it was just, we were never going to have that in this case.
But the prosecution lays out their theory that David Swift didn't actually need a weapon.
We submit that the defendant dragged her to the garage. Once inside the garage, the defendant stomped Karen on her head with such violence that it caved her skull in.
I was shocked when I heard that because I had not heard that before, and I'm like, okay, we'll see the evidence of that.
The autopsy showed that there was starburst fracturing on the left side, which indicated that her head was against something solid and then was struck from the other side. And our theory is that solid object was the concrete in the garage.
The defense counters that the investigators never found any evidence in the garage to back up this theory.
So you actually walked around the garage and looked at it when you first went out there with Mr. Swift?
Yes, sir.
All right. You didn't see any blood or smell of strong bleach, did you?
I did not.
The prosecution then switches gears to focus on Karen's abandoned car. Remember, investigators say that her tire appeared to have been deliberately punctured.
The flat tire, I think, is one of the more significant pieces of the puzzle in this case.
One thing I did observe was a screw that was in groove number 3. The screw was slightly below the tread surface.
And does that have any significance to you in your examination?
Yes. When a object punctures the tire in the tread area, it will actually rebound as it goes through the tire because of the elastic nature and the structure of the tire.
Could you imagine a situation where a screw entered the tire in service like this, where it ran over an object, perhaps a pebble or a stone, that could have forced the screw head beneath the tread surface?
Well, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say extremely improbable.
It was their contention that the tire was intentionally deflated as a ruse to make people believe that Karen had actually suffered from a flat tire, and that's why her car was there, when in fact that was not the case.
But the defense brings in their own expert, who testifies that the screw could have accidentally punctured that tire.
There's other vehicles could kick up screws or nails. You know, say you're following a construction vehicle and some are on the back of the trailer and they bounce off and you just happen to be behind it. Who knows what angle it's going to strike your tire at as you're going down the roadway.
My expert actually did test on a light tire on a similar wheel and, tried to recreate that and explained it to the jury. And I think the jury has to decide which they believe.
The prosecution also calls Karen's friends, Bill and Kathy Bona, to the stand to testify about how they viewed Karen and David's relationship.
She finally started taking action when she started getting the confidence to say, I'm just done. I can't do this anymore. And the controlling and accusations, she was ready to be done with the marriage because she needed to get out.
The defense argues that Karen had full control of everything she did.
She did the behavior she wanted to, and that's just a reality. And as we move on closer to the time she got a divorce, she would come and go as she wished.
Prosecution asked the Bonas about Kathy's 40th birthday celebration, where they hosted an after-party with a group of their friends, which included the use of their hot tub. The Bonas testified that this party led to a confrontation with David Swift.
How were people dressed?
Some people had swimsuits, a couple people did not.
When you say they did not, did they have anything on?
No.
They were nude?
Yes.
Do you know if Miss Swift was in the hot tub?
It was, yes. I mean, I don't remember specifically seeing her, but she enjoyed getting in the hot tub when she came over, in the wintertime when it was cold, so I'm sure she was.
Was Mr. Swift present that night?
He wasn't at first, and he wasn't invited, and he wasn't welcome. Mr. Swift burst into the door, there and startled me and asked where Karen was.
What was his demeanor at that time?
He was agitated, I would say, but I would also say it really caught me off guard. I thought, I don't like this, and I went to get out of the chair to go, ask him to leave, basically, and he came down the stairs and left.
How did he appear when he came down, as far as his attitude and demeanor?
I mean, he came down the stairs and left abruptly and left through the door, quickly enough where I couldn't even really get a word in edgewise.
The prosecution plays David's full police interview in court, where he confirmed that he would sometimes follow Karen to the Bona's house.
Karen started sneaking out of the house, and she would go to be with Kathy and Bill.
And when you say go to be with them, what do you mean, go to party with them,
go party and naked in the hot tub in the backyard?
There was a lot of information about the hot tub parties and all of that, so it kind of verified the rumors that were going around that something somewhat wild was going on.
And there is key testimony still ahead as one emotional witness makes waves.
Well, we can call you next witness. Ashley Swift.
And David's own daughter prepares to testify at her father's trial. What will she say when she takes the stand? Inside the Weakley County Courthouse, attorney Daniel Taylor dives into one of the most memorable cases of his career.
I've been a trial lawyer for 32 years, and it's the most media attention on any particular case that I've had. This is 2011. After all those years, there's been no scientific breakthrough or anything. There's been nothing new that's come in or anything. After all this time, there was a charge.
The defense contends that the reason David would follow Karen was because he was worried about what was going on at those hot tub parties.
There were issues about conduct and things that were going on, adult parties, things about hot tub parties, and just some things that maybe some others considered not appropriate.
They call her friend, Robin Alford, who testifies that she saw Karen passed out at Kathy Bona's birthday party.
Did you see Karen Swift leave the hot tub and go into the house?
I did. I witnessed her get up. She looked to me as if she was hot and woozy kind of feeling when I walked in, and I witnessed her laying on the floor.
Did you, were you aware whether or not, when you first met the Swifts, that they drank alcohol or not?
Karen never drank before she come to Dyersburg, never. And I don't think that she could handle her alcohol at all.
The defense points out that in his police interview, David did express concern for Karen's welfare.
I'd have to go get her and drive her home, they'd call me. And so I was always concerned and worried about her. There was several times I found her in compromising situations. And I did get upset. I said, Karen, please, why are you doing this?
The defense was simple. David Swift did not kill Karen Swift. They said it could have been a random act by somebody who was just passing by, either in a car or on foot.
They didn't compare the fingerprints. They just tested David Swift. They had tunnel vision.
The defense also argues that David had a serious knee injury affecting his mobility, so he wouldn't have been physically able to dispose of Karen's body.
They said he had this injured leg, so he could not have possibly picked her up and placed her in the cemetery.
Did you notice anything about his leg or how he was walking?
He had a knee brace on and he had crutches.
Multiple witnesses for the prosecution dispute the seriousness of David's knee injury.
Was he using crutches?
I've never seen no crutches on Saturday.
Do you appear to be injured in any way?
You could see him using his crutches
while he was talking, but after he got done talking and they went in the house, he just walked like he didn't need crutches anymore. I thought that was strange.
Even if he is faking it, it's still there's a visual there. The jury is repeatedly seeing people get on the stand and say, yes, I saw him on these crutches. Yes, I saw him on these crutches.
The defense also disagrees with the prosecution's account of what happened inside the Swift home on the night of Karen's murder.
So part of the prosecution's theory of the case was that David comes into Karen's room, takes Ashley, the daughter, out of the bed and goes and puts her in bed with the sister Keeley. He returns to the room and Karen is either asleep or in a very incapacitated state, and then something happens where he ends her life.
Then the defense calls an essential witness to challenge that theory.
Would you tell everybody your name?
Ashley Swift. I was nervous to go on the stand, and they decided to call me early. And so in that moment, I did freak out a little bit, just because I hadn't mentally prepared myself.
Ashley, who was only 9 years old when she saw her mom for the last time, describes what she remembers about the hours before Karen disappeared.
You're not used to testifying, so let me just ask you a few things, okay?
Okay.
When your mother picked you up, did she pick you up in her car?
She did.
And where did y'all go after that?
We went home, back to our house where my sister and my dad were.
And do you recall getting out of the car or going to the house? Do you recall everything about that night?
Yeah, we came into the house and we went to sleep in her bedroom. I didn't really prepare for trial. Whatever was asked was what was asked, and however I answered was however I answered, and I told the truth in everything that I said.
And Ashley testifies that it wasn't her father who moved her from the bed that fateful night.
Oh, I know it was my mother.
How do you know that?
It's instinct to know your mother versus somebody else. You have that bond with that person and you know who it is.
But you didn't actually see her?
No, but I felt her. There were some times during my testimony where they were trying to, I think, trick me into thinking that what I felt and knew was something else, and I made sure to own that. It was my testimony.
So you actually don't know for sure then, do you?
I mean, I have a pretty good instinct to feel what my mother feels like.
Seeing his oldest daughter take the stand becomes a visibly emotional ordeal for David.
I know that it was physically tough, and he knew it was difficult being asked questions.
And finally, after 2 weeks of heated exchanges and moving testimony, there are fireworks inside the jury room where lines are drawn in the sand.
It was divided pretty much down the middle.
It was basically the guys against the girls.
As the courtroom holds its breath for a verdict. After 6 days of emotionally charged testimony in David Swift's murder trial, it was time for the lawyers on both sides to make their final plea to the jury.
Karen and David Swift's marriage ended sometime around 3:30 a.m. on October 30th, 2011. Sadly, it didn't end the way Karen had envisioned it might when she filed for divorce earlier that month from David. My job in closing argument was to convince the jury that there was only one person that could have done this, and that's what I attempted, to thread all the evidence together and present them with a coherent theory of what happened that evening. There was only one person in the planet that could have killed Karen Swift, and it was David.
How do you think the prosecution did in presenting its case to the jurors?
I think that General Goodman had a very, very difficult case. It was an inherited case. It was very old evidence. I think that he did the absolute best that he could to try to bring justice to Karen Swift.
The prosecutor said that he would put the puzzle together, but the puzzle was incomplete. And so that's exactly what I argued. And that his version of the offense and what he claimed happened was incorrect or inconsistent with what was proven. There is no proof to support the state's theory in this case. You have heard all of my questions. You have heard all of the witnesses. The state said that this was a puzzle that they would put together for a complete picture. There is no complete picture.
In order to return a verdict, it is necessary that each juror agree thereto. Your verdict must be unanimous.
As it was going to the jury, we all kind of sat around and a bunch of family friends showed up, and we were sitting there trying to figure out, oh, what if the jury's saying this? What if they're saying that? But we really didn't know what was going on in that jury room.
We started deliberating. Why don't you think he's guilty? Why do you think he's guilty? We took an initial vote just to see where everybody was, and it was divided pretty much down the middle.
It was basically the guys against the girls.
According to juror David Liggins, some of those male jurors felt there just wasn't enough evidence to convict David Swift.
If you stomp somebody's head on concrete good enough to fracture her skull like it was fractured and busted, and then he can beat every law enforcement and science in the state, I don't believe that's possible this day and age. No physical evidence.
But for other jurors, they say David Swift's behavior towards Karen couldn't be ignored.
In my heart, I really thought he did something when he knew where she was at and what she was doing, because he was following her. That made me think that, yes, he did something.
As the jury was deliberating, things were very tense, and you could sense the tension minute by minute.
I actually was not surprised that the jury was deliberating as long as they did. Anytime you have a circumstantial case, you're going to have a lot of discussions, you're going to have a lot of opinions.
When the jury went out, it was tense on both sides. Both sides were just waiting. You have no choice other than to talk to your client, talk to his family. And so he obviously was nervous, and it could mean either him going home or either him staying, in custody.
After hours of fruitless deliberations, the jury tells the judge they were unable to reach a decision. He instructs them to keep trying.
After 10, 11 hours, you're getting tired.
Mentally exhausted. Everybody was so tired.
They couldn't reach a decision, so they stayed and they went home, and then they came back.
It got a little heated, but anytime you got difference of opinions, it's eventually going to get a little heated.
Finally, after 2 days of deliberation, the jury announces it has reached a decision.
When we walked back in there, everybody was looking, of course. They're going to see if they can tell whether you voted not guilty or guilty. Anybody would have voted like we did. But I do remember looking out in the gallery.
I saw one lady, she was shaking, and the longer it took, it was obvious to me that she was becoming more nervous, and this was pretty much the scene inside the courthouse.
I just prayed we had done the right thing.
Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict in this case?
After 2 days of grueling deliberation, the jury has come back in David Swift's murder trial.
Has the jury reached a verdict in this case?
No, Your Honor.
Do you feel like that it is likely that the jury on continued deliberations will reach a verdict?
No, sir.
I think the best word to describe what happened as the verdicts were being read was shock.
Does the jury agree on the highest level of offense that the defendant is either guilty or not guilty?
Yes.
What is the verdict in that?
Not guilty.
The jury came back not guilty on first-degree murder, not guilty on second-degree murder, and they were hung on voluntary manslaughter.
Do you all believe that the jury is hopelessly deadlocked with respect to the charge of voluntary manslaughter? I see everybody nodding their head yes.
I was just sitting there in the chair. I was just kind of just numb. I was like, I can't believe this. We spent all this time presenting the facts, and apparently they just didn't get it. The jury didn't get it.
The first two officers on the scene said that they did walk into the garage that day. I'm sorry, you could smell bleach if he had bleach in there. You could see the blood if he ain't cleaned it up yet. When they gave me a scenario, that's where he done it. And then they can't find nothing. That ended the case for me.
I think it stopped at manslaughter because I felt like he did something. In my heart, I really thought he did something.
When the verdict came in, your reaction?
Honestly, I really was not surprised. Reasonable doubt was everywhere.
I think the way that the prosecution laid it out was the only person that could have done it was David Swift. They didn't present proof that said that it was David Swift. If I removed myself and my knowledge of the case, and I was an independent person, I would have had to have rendered a verdict of not guilty.
One detail that the prosecution wasn't allowed to introduce at trial, David's indictment for allegedly stalking his second wife, Kelly. But some jurors say hearing about that accusation wouldn't have made a difference.
The only thing, in my opinion, that would have changed my outcome was the scenario the prosecution gave. Yes, that woman was beat to death, but they can't convince me that David done it.
Let me take you to the penultimate moment, which is, what was it like to hear the jury say not guilty?
Man, it was great. I thought, finally, it was overwhelming.
Although he was acquitted of murdering Karen, David Swift's legal ordeal is far from over. He's still facing that charge of stalking his second wife and remains in jail as he faces retrial on that voluntary manslaughter charge.
I'm disappointed that the jury didn't reach a decision that I thought they should as to all the offenses. And that's the jury system. And that's why we'll have a retrial.
We were confident going into the first trial. We're equally confident for a second trial. And I think that it's something that we can't give up on. It's just something that we have an obligation to do.
I'm not really sure what you expect to get out of a retrial when we've already seen the presentation of all this evidence before, and everybody has pretty much already formed a decision on it.
And today, 13 years after her mother disappeared, Ashley Swift, Karen and David's daughter, still steadfastly believes in her father's innocence.
Moving forward, I'm not exactly 100% sure what's going to happen. I hope that we can get my dad home soon. He is currently sitting in jail for something that, he shouldn't even be in jail for.
David has missed out on a lot of special things. He has missed the birth of a grandchild, his daughter's graduation from dental hygiene school, his oldest daughter, Ashley. He has missed Keely graduating high school.
What does justice for Karen Swift look like?
I think that in a situation like this, I think that we have to unfortunately reconcile with the fact that there may not be justice.
I will always remember Karen, and I think everybody should remember Karen by her love for children, that she was a great mother and she was a great friend.
I think one of the things I want people to know most about my mom is she's a very caring and nurturing person, and she would do anything for any of us kids or my dad. I would love to have my dad around again and, really fight for justice for my mom.
That's our program for tonight. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
An all-new 2020 starts right now.
A chaotic scene. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife Carrie unresponsive in their bedroom.
I put my head to her chest and no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing.
An EMT told me that my daughter was dead.
There was a piece of paper on the end table, and something didn't set right.
Your wife took her own life, and it's pretty obvious.
I just kept saying there's no way.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done.
We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't. Your assignment for today. We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
I would go, "Good morning, angels."
Harley's Angels of Waco. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go. You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
Things aren't adding up. I have to know the truth. What are you talking about? Murder?
EMS, what's your emergency?
My wife is laying in the bed. Her lips are blue, hands are cold.
It was just before midnight here in the small town of Hewitt, Texas, on the outskirts of Waco. Beloved minister Matt Baker comes home to find his wife unresponsive in their bedroom. Their two young daughters asleep in their beds. Matt calls 911.
Are you in there with her right now? Is she conscious?
No, she's
not. Breathing? Did you see what happened to her?
No, I do not know.
The ambulance is on the way, okay? Are you right beside her right now?
Yes.
Matt had been beside his wife Carrie since they met at a Baptist summer camp and fell in love.
I was the assistant director and she was one of the camp counselors. And from day one, we kind of hit it off.
Carrie fell head over heels. She told the family that she'd met a good Christian boy and she'd fallen in love.
Her faith was the core of who she was. And so it was very important to her that she found someone whose faith was aligned with hers.
Matt grew up in Kerrville. He too came from a very religious family.
Carrie, she was always the bubbly little blonde and just loved life. People were drawn to Carrie.
She was so funny. And when Carrie laughed, she laughed with her whole body. Everyone in the room just could feel her because she was just so free-spirited.
I don't think there was ever a question Carrie was right or not right for me. It was we moved fast. We met in May and married in August.
We tried to talk Carrie into waiting a little longer, and she really did not want to. Carrie was looking for a husband with morals and values that were similar to what she had, and Matt, she believed, had those.
That you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you.
She was marrying a Baptist minister. How good is that? You couldn't pick a better guy than Matt Baker.
Can you say Merry Christmas? No, here, take your pacifier out. Say Christmas. Can you give a kiss?
The kids came quickly.
Oh.
They looked like this perfect young couple with this beautiful baby.
Carrie wanted children. She always had, and she was a wonderful mother.
She feels so pink.
And then Cassidy came. It looked to the outside world like everything was just coming together for the Bakers.
If you know our children, not just my wife, Carrie, and it's special for me to do this because they are my children, and our children.
Cassidy, hi.
But it was just after Cassidy's first birthday when the family was dealt some heartbreaking news about her.
And it turned out that she had a brain tumor. Carrie was devastated, absolutely devastated.
We went to Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth.
It was a scary time, and she struggled in pediatric ICU for 60 days. They started chemotherapy on her.
They didn't know if she would make it through, but she did.
We get to bring her home. That was one of the happiest days.
She needed a lot of care when she came home, but she was expected to recover.
The Academy Awards were playing that night, and I remember staying up watching that. I went in and checked on Cassidy, and she was fine. I gave her a kiss and said a prayer, checked on their older sister, kissed her, said a prayer, and went to bed.
A little while later, he got back up and went and checked on her a second time. This time he started screaming. Carrie jumped up, ran into the room, found Cassidy, and she wasn't breathing at all.
I yell at my wife as I'm taking her out of the bed, and I put her on the floor and I begin CPR. She calls 911.
They brought Cassidy to the hospital, but they weren't able to save her. Cassidy died.
I know we dealt with it differently. We would have discussions about it and pray about it. And it was a struggle.
Carrie bled grief after Cassidy died.
And she was having a difficult time sleeping.
Carrie had been taking over-the-counter sleep aid since Cassidy died.
She could not calm down at night without sleeping pills.
She started writing journals, and she just poured out incredible sorrow. She thought she saw Cassidy wherever she went.
It was horrible. What helped Carrie, in addition to her faith and her family, was she saw a grief counselor for a year. She talked and talked things through.
The death of a child always puts a terrible strain on a marriage. Carrie really fought to keep that marriage together. She loved Matt. She wanted it to work out.
I just told Carrie that men and women often grieve in different ways.
In time, the Bakers and their daughter tried to move ahead with their lives.
It was a year and a half after Cassidy's death. Carrie found out that she was pregnant. Carrie said that the baby was coming by the grace of God.
There was definitely a fear in my wife that I had not seen before. A fear of what if. I lost one, what if we lose another one? I can't handle that.
She loved her girls, and she was so strong for them. Cassidy's life was cut short, but she had them.
The four of them looked like this perfect little family. You would think, oh, look, they just have it all.
EMS, what's your emergency?
Almost exactly 7 years after the death of her daughter, Cassidy, Carrie is now seemingly lifeless on their bedroom floor while her husband works to save her.
Do compressions first, okay? Just keep doing compression.
Waco is a great city. It's very religious. You can't walk a block without seeing a church.
It's small enough that most people are just a degree or two away from knowing everybody else.
Hewitt, Texas is a suburb of Waco. Back then, maybe 12,000 people. They have their own city, government, police.
And when Carrie and Matt moved in, they quickly became part of the community.
But in early April 2006, right here in the heart of the Bible Belt, a chaotic scene is unfolding inside this house. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife Carrie unresponsive in their bedroom.
And what's the problem? Tell me exactly what happened.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold.
Is she conscious?
No, she's
She's
not.
breathing?
No, she's not breathing at all. No pulse or anything.
I put my head to her chest and didn't see or feel her chest rising, no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing.
Okay, listen carefully. I need you to get her laying flat on her back on the ground and remove any pillows, okay?
Okay, put her on the floor.
Correct.
She's on the bed now. Put her
All right, she needs to be on the floor, yes, sir.
Okay.
The 911 operator tells Matt to do CPR, to put Carrie on the floor and start CPR.
Do that and tell me when you're done.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Oh, my. Okay, hold on.
I did not want the EMTs to come in and see her naked. And so I put her clothes on her, for her. And as I'm taking her off the bed, fluid comes out of her mouth onto the floor, and it smells of alcohol.
You're going to push down firmly 2 inches with only your lower hand touching her chest. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times.
400?
400 times is the latest we've been instructed to do, okay?
400.
Twice per second.
Rest it off?
After the 400. You're going
400
to, correct. It's going to be about twice per second. It'll take you about 3.5 minutes to do it, okay? So start right now. I'll tell you when to stop. All right.
While on the phone, Matt asks the 911 operator to call Carrie's parents because he says his daughters are also in the house.
I need to get a hold of her parents. They live in town, and I want them to come over and be with the kids.
Get somebody else started on this, okay?
Thank you.
We received a phone call from the 911 operator telling us that we needed to get over to my daughter's house, that there had been an accident. We needed to get over there immediately.
Oh, she's got foam or something coming out of her nose. Okay, someone's at the front door. I gotta go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
My name is Michael Irvin. I was a patrol officer with the city of Hewitt, and at that time I had only had about 6 months of actual law enforcement experience. I was the first officer to respond to the house. There was actually an EMT that met me in the front yard. Matt Baker actually met us outside and then walked us in, and he took us straight into the bedroom where his wife was at.
The EMTs go in and they find Carrie on the floor. She's wearing a t-shirt and a pair of underpants.
And they come in, and I step away and let them start working.
There was a glass there that was actually still cold, if I remember correctly, which led into his account of what happened that night.
It'd been a typical Friday night that Matt says started with him and Carrie sharing a drink before heading to the local Y.
And we had a wine cooler that I'd purchased, and so she drank one, I drank one. We take our oldest daughter to swim practice that night. On the way, my wife started saying her stomach was hurting her. She just felt nauseated, wasn't feeling very good.
After the family returns home, Matt says Carrie still wasn't feeling well, and after taking a bath, she heads to bed while he starts the bedtime rituals with her daughters.
It's a Friday night, so they could stay up later. They could stay up till 10 o'clock watching TV. Came back, laid down with my wife. She's still in bed, half asleep, and she wants another drink. She has a drink, I have one too. She goes to sleep, wakes up at about 11 o'clock and asks me to go get a movie. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. She goes, well, go get this movie for me and gas up because we have a busy day tomorrow.
He left to go get a movie. While he was gone, he came back and he discovered that he couldn't get back in.
Walk to the bedroom door and it's closed. And I try the knob and it's locked. And I knock on it and call her name, Carrie, and there's no response.
Matt says he finds a small screwdriver to try to open the door.
So I pop the lock and open the door and find her in bed. And it was very eerily similar to walking in the room when I found Cassidy.
As EMTs in the Baker residence work on Carrie, police take note of those wine coolers on the bedside table and something else.
There was this bottle of Unisom that it was almost empty.
She had been taking sleeping pills to go to sleep since Cassidy passed away and started taking more and more of them. And we had discussions that you've got to stop doing this. This is too many. This can be dangerous.
We ran out of the car, and as I started running up to the front of the house, An EMT person stood in front of me and grabbed me and told me that my daughter was dead. I just kept saying, there's no way.
There was a piece of paper on the end table, and something didn't set right. For me, it all pointed back to that note.
A frenzied scene has been unfolding in the middle of the night at the Baker's home. Matt Baker's wife is dead, and there's a note.
On the bedside table, there's a suicide note.
That was the first time that the word suicide entered my mind. I had no idea at that moment what had happened.
In the note, there was reference to Cassidy. Matt explained to me that Cassidy was their daughter. And it's a very difficult time for Carrie because of the anniversary of Cassidy passing away. The first person I remember showing up after me, I explained all the things that Matt had showed me, and I took a step back.
In Texas, in small counties where they don't have medical examiners, the justices of the peace decide what happens when there's an unexplained or a sudden death.
I do remember in that phone call, it was Judge Martin.
They told him they had a suicide note and they had alcohol and that they had pills. And Billy Martin did not order an autopsy.
It was classified as a suicide based on the preliminary investigation and what they saw at the scene.
Police involvement at that point is done.
Carrie Baker's family and her church community are shocked by her suicide.
I hurt for her. I hurt that someone hurt enough that they made that choice.
We're just trying to put one foot in front of the other and get through this. This is...
Less than 1 week after Carrie's funeral, Pastor Matt Baker is back at the pulpit here at Crossroads Baptist delivering the Easter sermon. He tells his congregation that just like Jesus, Carrie has risen up to heaven.
There was always the desire in her to be with a daughter that was in heaven now. And she did voice that several times, that Cassidy needed her, she needed Cassidy.
This was my wife's Bible that she carried for years.
Matt had given her a Bible years earlier, and she started writing her feelings in the margins.
She says, I want to go with Cassidy. She could never let go of Cassidy. It was such a strong hold on her.
The week Carrie died, she had a session with her grief counselor and also saw a doctor who prescribed her medication.
The next day she ripped up the prescription. She wouldn't fill it.
After finding out Carrie died, I had talked to my sister Kay. I just kept saying, there's no way.
Carrie would never take her own life.
And then that's when she told me about a visit she got from Joanne.
Joanne Bristol is Carrie's grief counselor and also friends with Carrie's aunt, Kay Bailey.
She had had a session with Carrie earlier that week. She had shared with me what Carrie had shared with her, that Carrie found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase.
Joanne Bristol also shared that detail and others with police in the days following Carrie's death.
My sister Kay and I, we all started talking, not around Linda. We all were sitting there going, what are we going to do? Because we knew so much about Matt.
We worked at a church camp together. Matt, I believe, had been written up at that particular camp for harassing girls that I went to school with.
There was also an alleged incident from his college days involving a fellow student.
I was afraid of him. I was angry with him. He took away virtually my young adulthood.
Laura Wilson filed a complaint against Matt, saying he sexually assaulted her.
We were both student trainers for the athletic department. He was a sophomore trainer and I was a freshman trainer.
She was cleaning the bathrooms. Matt came in and offered to help.
He came up behind me and he pinned my arms behind my back and started trying to kiss me. I kept telling him to stop. He came up from behind me, picked me up, sat me on his lap, and he began running his hand between my legs. I was struggling to get away. He didn't stop with the kiss. He didn't stop with the touching until he was ready to stop. Now I'm left with myself, violated, in shock, not knowing what to do.
All I can tell you is when she left the facility, was in tears, but nothing that I did.
After the assault happened, his words to me were, "I never meant to hurt you."
At the time, Laura told a college staffer about the alleged assault. Matt was not disciplined.
I dropped out, dealt with recurring nightmares, dealt with trust issues in relationships. It derailed my life for many, many years. I became a different person.
She eventually filed a report with police years later. They began looking into the allegations, but stopped once they realized the statute of limitations had passed. Matt Baker denies assaulting Laura or harassing any female campers.
Things have been said that can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, but I can say this, I never accosted anybody.
Throughout Matt and Carrie's marriage, rumors of alleged inappropriate sexual behavior would continue to follow the preacher, but his wife stood by him.
She loved Matt. When Carrie heard allegations that Matt had been inappropriate with young women, she was his staunchest defender. She told one young woman, when you marry a Baptist preacher, women are going to come forward and make false allegations, and you have to protect them.
Carrie believed him, and we believed Carrie. She was telling us the truth, as she knew it.
I think there's a presumption with a man of God that they have a certain character and a certain ethical base, and we believe that.
Linda's sisters had hoped that by talking to her about the various past allegations against Matt, she might start to see him in a different light. But she didn't. She still had faith in her son-in-law.
My sisters came over, and I told them, let's just grieve and let this go.
But the family wouldn't let it go.
It started with the cell phone records.
And Linda soon makes a startling discovery.
Something wasn't right.
Over the years, since her daughter Cassidy's death, Carrie Baker was in and out of counseling, dealing with her grief, especially around the time of year when Cassidy died.
Anytime you got close to the anniversary of the death of Cassidy or her birthday or holidays, there was definitely a deep sadness.
But there was more going on that year. There was the fact that she was uncertain about her relationship with Matt. She sensed that something was very wrong. After Carrie's death, Linda's sisters sat down with Linda and said, we don't believe that Carrie committed suicide.
While Linda may have still been processing her daughter's loss, her family's emotions had quickly turned to suspicion.
I remember Nancy saying, Linda, have you ever considered that perhaps Carrie didn't take her life? I remember stammering and saying, oh, what are you talking about? Murder? We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't.
The family decides to tell Linda what they say they learned from Carrie's therapist.
Carrie had shared with her that she'd found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase, and she was afraid that Matt might possibly try to kill her.
She said, I think Matt's trying to kill me. And then she started laughing and she said, oh no, Matt would never do that.
But at the same time, I thought this would make more sense because I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
I think if truly Carrie went and said that and was fearful for her life, the counselor should have done more and didn't. Looking back, I think it was a scream. The first scream in a series of screams that took place that week of, I'm hurting more than you think I am.
Murder, I mean, that's just not something that I could wrap my head around. I needed time to think, to process. This was too difficult for me to be able to discuss.
But then shortly after Carrie's death, Linda says she began to notice Matt was keeping her granddaughters away from her. No more babysitting, no more invitations to school events.
At that point, she started to feel a little different. What was going on here and why was this happening?
Linda remembers Matt and Carrie's cell phones were part of her family plan, so she decides to have a look at the phone bill.
The first really odd thing she noticed was that Matt had continued to call Carrie's cell phone weeks after Carrie had died. It made no sense at all, and then it all started to click. Matt's given Carrie's phone to someone.
And I think you said calling all angels, but we all went over to your house. You said, we need to get together and talk.
At that point, Linda started to think that maybe her sisters were right, and maybe they really did need to look into this.
It started with the cell phone.
And I immediately figured out it was Vanessa Bowles.
Vanessa Bowles was the daughter of the music minister at Crossroads Church where Matt was the preacher.
The relationship really started between my wife and her. They became friends.
Vanessa had a little girl that reminded Carrie of the baby she had lost.
There were only 3 young families in the church that had small children, so we naturally just kind of congregated together because we had similar interests. We were friends.
Vanessa would later describe in a recorded interview how she says the friendship evolved.
So I just got divorced, and it was nice to have someone, to talk to,
right.
Who was in a pastoral position.
And she gives her explanation of why she has Carrie's phone.
We were starting to talk and become friends. Then I said, don't call my cell because my mom pays for my meds and I don't want to run over during the day. I've done that many times before. And he was like, well, I still have Carrie's phone so I can give that to you.
Maybe Matt was simply seeking comfort in the friendship of a fellow churchgoer. But for Linda, those phone bills had set off alarm bells.
Linda went to the Hewitt Police Department. She showed them the phone bills, but they weren't interested. This was a done case. It was over as far as they were concerned.
That's when Linda said, I need my angels over here. I would email them. I would go, good morning, angels. She would always tell us, you need to do this. You need, and here's your assignment for today. We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
The assignments Linda gave out involved going through the garbage.
And Charlie was doing some digging right alongside her angels as well. She researched whether overdosing on a sleep aid could have really killed Carrie. And she questioned Matt about those alleged crushed pills.
I talked to Matt about the crushed pills.
My wife said she found him in my briefcase when she was looking for a pen. She said, well, did a kid where you work put him in your bag?
Matt claims that, unknown to him, some kids at work may have been spitting out pills into his briefcase.
But that seemed odd because the pills didn't look like they'd been spit out.
What he said couldn't have happened.
And so Kay called Judge Billy Martin to find out why he had ruled Carrie's death a suicide.
I had talked to him about the suicide note, and he mentioned it being signed, and I said it was not. And he goes, well, you need to talk to the police. I said, we've already done this, and we just want somebody to investigate it more.
And it was about that time where Matt's story no longer made sense. There were inconsistencies, outright lies, and we needed more answers.
So following the family's urging, police bring Pastor Matt Baker in for questioning.
Well, I just want to sit and talk to him.
Questions needed to be asked, and questions needed to be answered.
Year-old Carrie Baker has been found dead in her home. It was deemed a suicide by police, but her family began investigating on their own, and they urged police to question her husband, preacher Matt Baker.
I just want to sit and talk to him, I just want to talk about what happened that night. Absolutely. That way we can clear all this up, because I'm sure you know what I'm getting at, okay, as far as Linda, you know what I'm saying?
It was a very odd week. But not behavior that would have raised red flags.
Right.
If that makes sense. It was one of those deals that I knew she was depressed.
The conversation continues with Matt sharing his own view on what he believes might have happened.
I left about 11 or so. I wasn't gone maybe 40 minutes.
You left the house and went down to the gas station?
I wasn't even gone long at all.
Okay.
And that was the strange thing about it is I question where she would have taken the medicine. Personally, this is my opinion. I don't think the medicine is what killed her. I think she threw up into her mouth, but was knocked out enough and choked on it. So no, I don't know if that's just me trying to put stuff together to make it, I don't know.
Okay. Like I said, that's all I just wanted to sit and holler at you about. One last thing, to kind of quell everything. If I asked you to take a polygraph test, would you be willing to do so?
Okay.
Matt eventually passes a polygraph arranged by his attorney. Upset that police continue to consider Carrie's death a suicide, Linda pulls together a team of her own.
Linda ended up making an appointment to talk to a former federal prosecutor.
Now in private practice, Bill Johnston had been a federal prosecutor in Waco, Texas.
The Branch Davidian complex in Waco, Texas goes up in flames.
11 of the survivors now face murder and conspiracy charges in connection with the killing of 4 federal agents.
And in 1993, he was part of the team prosecuting the 11 surviving Branch Davidians.
Those agents did not die in vain.
Mrs. Doolin came to me and she said, I've heard maybe you can help me.
She explained to Bill that she doesn't believe her daughter took her own life, so she'd been working on Carrie's case with her angels.
What Charlie's angels were bringing to us was invaluable. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go. They brought a series of stories about Matt's conduct at different points in his life.
Bill pulled together his own posse. He brought together retired lawmen to take over this investigation.
I called them my guys, and they became as invested in this case as if they were fighting for their own child.
The biggest thing was to get the body exhumed, get an actual autopsy, and find out what had actually happened to Carrie Baker, how she'd actually died.
We started unraveling this thing bit by bit by bit.
Matt Coffon is a member of the legendary Texas Rangers. He joins the team and reviews the evidence on the case.
There are red flag after red flag that something was not right. It was so compelling that I could not automatically agree with the Hewitt police investigation. So I thought, okay, let's kind of break it down.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
These are photographs. As you can tell, there's just not much to them. There were so many things early on in this investigation that just did not match. And part of it was Matt Baker's explanation of his timeline.
He says he left and then he came back, and it was such a short time that she couldn't have died within that period.
That was the theory that we were operating on. His timetable did not really match up. This is an overall view of Hewitt, Texas, and it's not large.
And these locations are very close to each other.
Minutes apart, especially that time of night.
The team was also troubled by Carrie's suicide note, which Officer Michael Irving says was pointed out by Matt.
He just said, there's a suicide note, suicide note, suicide note. So he did direct me straight to the note.
The so-called suicide note was typed.
It's not signed, and that should be a red flag to any investigator. Let's take this a little bit further. It says, tell my mom and dad that I love them too. In this case, two is T-O, not comma, T-O-O.
She was a teacher. She could spell.
Yes.
Something didn't set right. And for me, it all pointed back to that note, that suicide note. I didn't speak up. At that time, I've been a police officer for 6 months. If I could go and turn back time, there are a lot of things I would have done differently.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done. And so at this point, we decided that we needed to have tissue samples from Carrie's body, so we wanted to have that body exhumed.
At the time of the Hewitt police investigation, they concluded Carrie had died by suicide of over-the-counter sleep medication.
One of the tasks that Linda took on for herself was investigating Unisom. She found that it would have taken a great deal to have caused Carrie's death, and that she wouldn't have died quickly.
We came up with clues that made us believe that perhaps there were prescription medications given to her without her knowledge.
Nearly 4 months after Carrie's death, the Texas Rangers, in conjunction with Hewitt Police, are able to get Judge Martin to sign an order allowing for the exhumation of Carrie's body.
As we gathered information from various sources, determined we need to go that route.
By this time, we were working pretty closely with a detective at the Hewitt Police Department.
It was critical that they had an autopsy.
We had a lot of circumstantial evidence, but we needed some scientific evidence, something that a prosecutor can hold in their hands and say, okay, now we may have something here.
What else would the Charlie's Angels of Waco and their investigative team learn?
A photograph was found on Matt Baker's computer. He tried to delete it.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
Was Carrie's death a terrible tragedy or something much more sinister?
A manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead. Her death originally ruled a suicide. But is that how the mother of two really died?
Maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger.
But you also discover in that Bible, Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way.
You don't quickly dress a dead body.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
I'm gonna tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Sometimes faith can be used to manipulate and to control people.
Preachers, the good ones are great. The bad ones have the most power of anybody.
Here they were, the police, in the home of a Baptist minister with a suicide note and sleeping pills and a bottle of alcohol. Well, the police at that point aren't thinking murder. They're thinking that Carrie committed suicide.
Texas pastor Matt Baker had lost a young daughter years earlier. He now appears to be facing yet another tragedy, the suicide of his wife, Carrie. But her family isn't buying it.
I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
We will fight for the truth.
Could Carrie have been murdered? The Hewitt police, now collaborating with Texas Ranger Matt Cawthon, who's been working with Carrie's family, obtained an order to exhume Carrie's body. And the autopsy results are now in.
In her muscle tissue, there was a presence of Ambien, and that was huge, huge. And at the time of her death, she didn't have a prescription for Ambien.
No.
The autopsy now lists Carrie's manner of death as undetermined.
Now you're in undetermined land. Now you're in a mystery. Now let's solve the mystery.
Bill Johnston and his team continue to dig, now taking a closer look at those few crime scene photos.
What's this?
This is a picture of Carrie's arm. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the beginning of lividity, the purplish color from the pooling of the blood. You know, when the heart pumps, it pumps through the veins and the arteries. When the heart stops, everything settles to its lowest point. It's gravity. We have lividity set in the body, and that takes time. And this was a problem with Bill Johnston and his team.
And so we found the person who wrote the book on crime scene reconstruction, Tom Bevel.
The first responders from the medical field are saying that lividity either was setting in or set, which in that time frame, that's a problem.
So this is their home right there, right?
Yeah, this is their home. So if he leaves his house at 11, 45 to 55 minutes later, lividity could not have been set in as it was in the photographs, all right?
Cawthon and the team believe that Carrie was likely dead before Matt Baker left his home. So if Carrie's suicide was a homicide, how was she killed? The photograph showed something more.
In one of the photographs, there is a small abrasion that is to the bridge of her nose.
We surmised that this was very likely done using a throw pillow off of a couch. It was kind of a coarse material that very likely could have caused an abrasion.
Indicating that maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
That's right.
The abrasion on Carrie's nose, it's not noted in the autopsy, but the presence of the generic form of Ambien is. So Bill Johnston wants to look into Matt's digital trail. He sues Matt for wrongful death and obtains access to his computer records.
A month before Carrie's death, they discovered Matt was on the computer searching for the term overdose by sleeping pills.
I did search that. I did research to see, can you overdose? Is that even a possibility that I need to worry about? My wife overdosing on sleeping pills.
As they continued to go through the computer, they found where he tried to buy Ambien, had moved it into a cart to purchase it.
And that bit of forensics in the computers now hard linked into the toxicology forensics. Our theory became, the Ambien in the wine cooler, he got her sleepy with that so he could later suffocate her. That was our theory.
And remember those writings in Carrie's Bible about Cassidy? Well, those were written years earlier. But there was a recent troubling entry dated just 5 days before Carrie's death.
Which says, I feel like I have so much worry. Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm. I am not sure what is going on with Matt. What does that indicate?
It's ominous. It's almost like she is afraid of him.
Looking back on it, they were predictive.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger, and she didn't realize that at that point that he was involved with somebody else.
During this investigation, we got a clue from a woman who worked in a jewelry store and said within a couple of weeks after Carrie's death, Matt Baker comes into the jewelry store with a woman, and they're looking at engagement rings.
No, we were not. One of our rules for our kids was when they turn 6 years old, they can get earrings. And so we began looking for jewelry, earrings.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
This is Vanessa Bulls. She was the other woman. Now, this is a photograph that we found on his computer in trash.
We knew there was going to be a birthday party, and we took a picture of all the girls and Matt and Vanessa.
It wasn't long after Carrie's death when people came over. They didn't see any pictures of Carrie at all, but there was a picture of Vanessa with the girls. 2 of Carrie and Matt's friends came to help with the party, and one of them stayed overnight, and she saw Matt sitting on the couch with Vanessa's head on his lap.
To Carrie's family, it was clear that a romantic relationship had developed between Matt and Vanessa. 4 months after Carrie's death, police believe Vanessa Bulls just might be the key to solving this case. So they bring her to the Hewitt Police Station for questioning.
It's just scary.
I know. Sorry to keep you waiting. Like I said, I'm going to ask you some questions about that, Carrie.
Okay.
It just doesn't mean the truth. Okay?
I'm sorry, this is just scary.
I know.
4 months after Carrie's death, Vanessa Bulls, the woman who appears to have become romantically involved with Matt Baker, is now sitting at the police station, answering questions about how that relationship unfolded.
Every once in a while, he started calling just to chat, just kind of asking about my divorce and, kind of saying how, like, God would work everything out.
How long was that it took it to progress to him calling a couple times a day?
I want to say a couple of weeks. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nice to have someone who, had 2 daughters and would possibly, be the dad to my child.
Sure.
Having an affair that predated the killing, that would be big evidence.
Did you ever meet him romantically?
No.
Never? Okay.
After yes. After his wife passed away.
Okay.
Because I didn't think there was anything wrong.
2020 obtained emails never before broadcast that show Carrie and Matt's relationship unraveling in the weeks before Carrie's death, at the same time as Matt and Vanessa's phone calls start to heat up.
She sensed that something was very wrong.
In one of those emails, Matt blames Carrie for Cassidy's death, writing you wanted her to be pain-free, and then telling her your prayer was the one that was answered.
That made her angry, and she was going to leave him. I suggested they get counseling.
Back in that police interview, Vanessa, who at this point had broken things off with Matt, seems open to believing he could have murdered Carrie.
Do you think that he had anything to do with her death?
I think anything's possible now.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead in her home. Her death, originally ruled a suicide. But now, nearly a year and a half later, a judge has set a hearing to try to determine if that is how the mother of 2 really died.
A formal inquest into Carrie's death was held, but in the end, the justice of the peace, who initially declared it a suicide, made the same determination that the autopsy had made a year earlier.
That Carrie Lynn Baker's manner and cause of death shall be recorded as undetermined.
So what do you do?
And at some point, we have to do what we think is right. And in this case, it was to get an arrest warrant for Matt Baker.
Even though it wasn't ruled a homicide, nearly a year and a half after Carrie's death, Matt Baker is arrested for her murder.
Matt Baker is accused of drugging his wife Carrie with sleeping pills and then suffocating her with a pillow.
There's no way that he could take a life. I know my sons, and I just don't believe he could do that.
And we have breaking news for you now from the McLennan County Jail.
Matt Baker could be released any time now. His $200,000 bond has been paid in cash.
My best decision was to move away from there and to move back here to my hometown, where I felt support and felt loved.
And it's in Kerrville, about 200 miles from Hewitt, that our cameras catch up with Matt and his daughters.
This is a little bit of everything. They have a cafe where they take flowers and they crush them up and pretend it's chicken noodle soup. Don't be embarrassed.
2020 gets a glimpse of life with their father.
Favorite thing to do is play with my dad.
After losing their mother.
Each have their own,
Mine, hers.
you know, and they separate pants from shirts.
I pick mine and then he picks hers.
But I have to okay hers.
Yes.
Why?
Because she likes spaghetti straps.
But I don't wear them to school. I'm not allowed.
And during this last year, he was a single parent, working and taking care of his girls. They emotionally attached to their dad very strongly, the younger one especially.
This is my favorite toy because it used to be my dad's when he was a little kid.
Once Matt was released, he went on kind of a press tour.
He tried to tell the world his side of the story.
Would Matt Baker have the nerve to actually interview for and do a photo shoot with Texas Monthly? Yes, he would.
Pretty much anybody who wanted to talk with him, Matt Baker had an open door.
Tonight on 2020, was it suicide or murder?
The story goes national, and Matt Baker sits down with 2020 for an interview. He proclaims his innocence and denies he had an affair with Vanessa Bulls.
It was a friend, it was a very good friend, but there's nothing there now. I don't believe in adultery, I don't believe in divorce.
The problem was that for him was that he changed his story a little bit every time he gave one.
Matt tells 2020 that it was the police who found that suicide note.
One of the police officers found it and handed it to me, and I held it in my hands for a brief moment, and I looked at the first line, and I handed it back and said, I can't read it right now.
But listen as Matt refers to that suicide note in his 911 call.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold, and there's a note that says, I'm sorry, basically.
There's no way I could ever have hurt my wife. I loved her. She's the mother of my children, and I miss her, and I did not hurt my wife.
We felt validated with the arrest, but I'm going to tell you right now, all the arrests in the world mean nothing without a good prosecution.
The Texas Rangers made an arrest on the case, and the case was then transferred to our office. And I believed that Matt had killed Carrie, but I didn't feel like that we had the proof to take it to a trial and get a conviction.
If you get an acquittal, it's over.
6 months after Matt Baker's arrest, the murder charge is dismissed after prosecutors failed to indict him.
It was frustrating, but I mean, we knew it would take time and we weren't going to stop.
People started running around town with bumper stickers that said "Justice for Carrie." Love trumps evil was underneath it.
We had truth on our side. We had God on our side.
We had Bill Johnston, and we were going to continue civilly.
But his story was not adding up anymore.
You wouldn't have left those two girls there if you didn't think it was safe.
And would Matt's account of what he says he did when he found Carrie check out?
He's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
When the criminal case was stalled and it wasn't going forward, Bill Johnston filed a wrongful death case, and that allowed him to subpoena Matt Baker for a deposition.
It's the lower left of the
2.5 years after the death of his wife, Matt Baker is on the hot seat, answering questions under oath about the night she died.
About 10:45-ish, a little before 11, she asked me if I could run a couple of errands.
Now, had she sort of refreshed herself and gotten awake and got forward thinking by that time?
It was still kind of that half awake, just talking, but still kind of real drowsy.
I'm conjecturing that it went through his mind that maybe she already took all the sleeping pills before he left.
Was she aware enough that you could observe that she could handle if the kids needed her, for instance?
I would have, yeah, I felt that she probably could.
She had to be fine, or else she was incapacitated and he was a bad father and he just left his girls with an incapacitated person. Which one is it, Matt? So he chose the high road, that yes, Carrie was fine. So if Carrie's fine, she's not getting ready to die.
Bill was able to ask him question after question after question and get answers from him that were very helpful.
While you have the phone pressed against your shoulder, you put on her panties first, is that correct?
I believe that's right.
And then what did you do?
And I put on her shirt.
Okay, and she's on the bed at this time?
Correct.
But Matt had told police a different version of how he dressed Carrie that night.
So I put the panties on her in the bed as I was getting her out, and then when she was on the floor, I put her shirt on.
The clothing, it appears consistent, especially her panties, as to how you would typically find if they were put on by the individual, not somebody else, with a lady who is not able to assist.
If he would lie about dressing her, why? And he wanted to explain their body was cold by saying she was nude on top of the bed, as if she would have aired out, cooled off.
Just a stick figure put where she came to rest once you moved. How difficult was that to move her?
I guess at the time you don't even think about it. You just do what you have to do.
We wanted to know if Matt's story holds up, so we asked Texas Ranger Matt Cawthon to put it to the test with a dummy roughly the same weight as Carrie's at the time of her death.
He would have had to reposition the body. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
How much time would he have had to do this between the call to 911 and the chest compressions?
About 2 minutes.
To dress her, put her body on the floor, all while on the phone with 911. We're going to see if you can do this. I'm going to put a stopwatch to it, and here we go. And you're doing it as fast as you can.
Well, I'm doing it the best I can. And I feel the phone about to fall.
We're at 48 seconds now. We're about 1:20.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking to the 911 operator.
That's 1:57 seconds. And then
just to get her dressed. That doesn't include the removing from the bed and the chest compression.
And I know how to do CPR.
Oh, you do?
In listening to the 911 call, it sounded phony.
Do I need to go unlock the front door?
I'll let you know when they start getting close, okay?
Okay.
I think he'd give himself an Oscar, and I'd give him a Rotten Tomato.
Just keep doing compression.
I would not have known at the time when I got there that he had been doing CPR.
You're still doing compressions?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
he did not sound winded on the phone.
No, not at all. He didn't have to do chest compressions because she was already dead. He killed her, I think, before he left to go run alibi errands.
Despite Matt's inconsistencies, prosecutors feel they need more, so they bring in a new detective to help with the investigation.
My name is Abden Rodriguez, and in 2009, I was a criminal investigator for the McLennan County District Attorney's Office.
I hear they call you the human lie detector?
I give because of some of the confessions that I was able to get.
Abdon is asked to review the case and find evidence that would help indict Matt Baker.
I wanted to look at the interviews that had been done. There was a lot of deception, you know, and I could see how, especially Vanessa was doing it.
How many times a week would you talk, you think, prior to her death? Once every day for a couple hours, and maybe midday, or?
Sometimes a couple times a day.
As you can see, She's got her arms crossed and her legs crossed. That's a big red flag to me.
When she passed away that week, how were the conversations? Were they kind of the same way they were before?
They were really the same.
And I told him, and I said, look, the whole key to this case is going to be Vanessa Booth. She's pretty and very smooth and friendly, but at the same time, you know she's a liar.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
After interviewing Vanessa, Abdon decides to subpoena her to testify in front of a grand jury.
I said, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to listen to your testimony. And I said, and as soon as you lie, I'm going to file charges on you.
When they brought Vanessa Bowles in for the grand jury, that was kind of a last-ditch effort.
So we're like, okay, let's see what happens.
As she and I were walking down the hall, she whispered to me, I'm going to tell y'all everything.
Behind closed doors, Vanessa Boole's grand jury testimony is the last step in getting Matt Baker indicted.
A former preacher charged with the murder of his wife.
Finally, Vanessa's testimony is the smoking gun.
Yes, it was. It was. She had everything we needed.
The civil case was dropped at that point in order to let the criminal case continue.
Matt Baker is charged with first-degree murder, accused of drugging and suffocating his wife, Carrie, and making it look like a suicide. He pleads not guilty. Now, 4 years after his wife's death, Matt Baker is on trial for her murder.
That first day of the trial, the gallery was full.
We have a lot of people here in the gallery today.
True crime author Catherine Casey was in the courtroom every day.
I followed this story from the first time it hit the Texas newspapers. It was just so fascinating that this had unfolded, especially in Waco, in this city that's just dominated by religion.
Prosecutors began poking holes in Matt's story from that night, starting with the 911 call and his claim that he performed CPR on Carrie.
We're going to go ahead and do compressions. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times. 400? 400 times.
Did any police officers arrive before you?
I was the first one there.
And what did he tell you?
He pulled her off the bed and put her on the floor in order to do CPR.
And what was his demeanor?
Very calm.
Did that strike you as odd?
Yes.
Even as a police officer, I would not be as calm as he was that night.
There was no way that in that period of time he was able to move her, dress her, and was doing CPR while he was having this conversation.
He wasn't sweating. He did not seem to be in any type of physical distress.
The computer expert found incredible evidence regarding searches, regarding suicide, regarding sleeping pills, and regarding Ambien, which became critical.
Can you tell the jury what was extracted from the muscle tissue of Carrie Baker?
We found 3 different drugs, phentermine, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem. And then zolpidem, and its common name is Ambien.
We never were able to determine where he got the Ambien from.
But we were able to determine that he was going to these websites and that he had gotten as far as putting Ambien in a cart.
Defense attorney Guy Gray pointed out that there was no evidence that Matt actually ordered Ambien from that website.
They went through the process of looking at it, but it was aborted and no purchase of Ambien was made. Correct?
Yes.
No further question.
You state your name for the jury, please.
Joanne Bristol.
Joanne Bristol, Carrie's grief counselor, testified about those comments she says Carrie made about Matt.
She said, I'm thinking my husband is going to kill me, but she recanted the statement.
How do you analyze that, or what do you think about that?
I felt at that time that I knew this client very well. She had never misled me, and so when she said, oh, but I know he wouldn't do that, I believed her.
You didn't advise her to leave the house or move out. You didn't call law enforcement. You took that as a recanting as an accurate or true reflection of what was going on.
From her, yes.
Day 4 of the trial, and it's the prosecution's star witness who everyone is waiting to hear.
This case was one of those cases where all of the attention is focused on one witness, and that one witness was Vanessa Bowles.
State calls Vanessa Bowles. I remember looking at Matt more than looking at the jury. I wanted to see his response, and I think he was stunned.
Raise your right hand. After years of denying their affair, Vanessa now admits that Matt began to pursue her even before Carrie died.
Please have a seat.
He started asking me things about my divorce and started telling me, whoever finds you is going to be a lucky man.
Did he say anything else unusual to you?
He came by and was kind of smiling. He said, oh, don't date other guys, just date your pastor, and kind of smiled.
Did he say anything else after that?
He said, will you really date your pastor? I've had a vasectomy, so I can't get you pregnant. Also, I don't have any STDs. And he also started telling me that because of Carrie's depression, as he stated, their sex life had been lacking.
And at the time, were you buying into what he was telling you about Carrie?
I was buying into everything. He was a complete, and still is, a manipulative liar who took me my vulnerable state and made me believe everything he said.
What happened then in early March as you and Matt started to spend Fridays at the Baker home?
And he asked if he could hold my hands to pray, and he did. Then afterwards, he started to kiss me. Then he just took my hand and led me to the bedroom.
Feeling guilty about being with her pastor, Vanessa says that Matt tried to reassure her.
I was extremely remorseful. I couldn't believe what just happened. He started saying, it's okay, don't feel bad, just ask God to forgive you. And he said, in reality, he said, I don't think God believes that anyone can just be with one person the rest of their lives.
After Carrie's death, Vanessa says Matt wanted more, perhaps even making her the next Mrs. Baker.
At some point, did you and Matt take the girls and go to Kay Jewelers in the mall?
We did. He stated that the girls wanted to go look at wedding rings for me.
Are you telling the jury that he was prepared at this point, a week or two after Carrie's death, to trade in Carrie's wedding set to get you a ring that you wanted?
Correct.
Matt had denied this in interviews, but a salesperson from the jewelry store corroborated Vanessa's account.
She tried on about 4 or 5 rings, asked his opinion. He just would tell her it didn't matter what he liked, it was what she liked, because she would be the one wearing it.
Vanessa then drops a bomb when she says not only did Matt want out of his marriage,
he said that if we ever fell so much in love that he would find a way out of it.
She also knows what happened to Carrie Baker.
I told him, I'm going to tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Vanessa testifies that Matt was openly plotting Carrie's death.
At what point did he start talking about planning her murder?
It was sometime mid-March. He said that, you know, she took sleeping pills every night, so maybe he could make it look like she overdosed on sleeping pills.
Vanessa Bowles talked about how Matt had ruminated about all the different ways he might kill Carrie.
He talked about making it look like she had hung herself. He talked about tampering with the brakes of her car, maybe doing a drive-by shooting.
What I saw from Vanessa's testimony was a man who was much more evil than even I believed he was.
She testified that Matt planned to kill Carrie with a tainted milkshake and then craft a suicide note.
1 to 2 weeks before Carrie's death, did he tell you that he had in fact tried that?
He did. He sent an email and said she took a sip of it and said that it tasted like lead. And so then he said he took a drink and said, oh, well, the ice cream must have been bad. He mentioned that he would leave a note, and he said that he would type it. And I said, that's never going to work. You're going to be caught. And he said, oh, no, she types everything.
Did he say something else about what he believed other people thought about her mental state?
Oh, he said that no one would question it because of how depressed she was.
Vanessa stuns the courtroom when she says Matt Baker told her how he killed his wife.
He had gotten big horse pills. He said he emptied out all the contents and put crushed Ambien in them. He said he handcuffed her to the bed, started kissing her and touching her all over until she fell asleep. Then he said he got the pillow and put it over her face.
What did he say happened next?
He said that he thought she was dead, and he just said she just took one big ass for air, and he said, oh, and then put the pillow back on her face, except he did this with his hand to be sure that he suffocated her.
He didn't even feel enough remorse when he realized that she was still alive to rethink it. He just wanted to finish the job.
He said he typed out the suicide note, printed it, got her hand, and he said that he ran her hand all around the sides of it and put her fingerprints all over it. He said that he set everything up, locked the door, and left.
What was the reaction in the courtroom to Vanessa's testimony that not only did Matt Baker kill his wife, but that he had been planning it?
He had planning it, and the things that he did, people couldn't believe it. I think the more surprising thing was that they couldn't believe that she said they're telling all this.
So you knew that Friday, April 7th of 2006 was the day that he was going to try it again?
I knew he was going to try it then, yes.
All right. And you didn't report that to anybody?
No.
Vanessa says she had second thoughts about Matt and the cover-up of Carrie's murder.
Not only had I known about this and not done the right thing, in truth, who would believe me? He was a preacher. And so I felt like I was stuck.
She then chose to break it off with him.
I decided that I didn't care what he told me anymore, that we didn't worship the same God. So I called him. I told him, I never want to see you again. And he became irate. He started saying, I killed my wife for you, and now you're leaving.
In a move Vanessa believed was meant to intimidate her, she testifies that Matt sent her an MP3 of a song called Dirty Little Secret.
He was talking about the murder plan, and he later referenced it, stating, I need to keep my mouth shut, don't tell anyone, or you'll be just another regret.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Bowles. The defense pressed Vanessa on why she was now coming clean about everything.
How would we know to believe you, Vanessa?
Because what do I have to gain from this right now? I'm setting things right. I made a mistake here because a manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life. And this testimony is going to put him where he needs to be.
It's now up to the jury to determine where Matt needs to be.
Folks, we can't protect her from harm. The only thing now we can do is give her justice. Then turned and pointed to Matt and said to convict this murdering minister and find him guilty for one reason only, because he is guilty.
The indictment says there's got to be facts of drugs and a pillow. And the only way you can get those facts is by believing Vanessa Bowles. And she is just not credible.
I think a lot of people struggled with Vanessa.
I mean, she had done horrible things, but I think it really helped her credibility when she was on the stand because she didn't try to fade her own culpability.
I think Vanessa was absolutely the key to the case.
They've reached a unanimous verdict, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Matt D. Baker, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment.
For the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury gets to hear additional testimony.
They came back and had witnesses from his past come and talk to us about things that he had done.
One by one, women testify about sexual misconduct they say they endured from Matt Baker.
He came up from behind me, put his hand on my breast. I pushed him away, told him no. He tried to kiss me,
told him no.
I remember having to use all my strength to try to keep him off of me and from taking my clothes off.
Including Laura Wilson, the student trainer who worked alongside him in college.
He took his hand and began running it up my thigh and between my legs.
I think as a jury, to see, what all he's been doing since he was a teenager made us 100% feel like that we had definitely made the right decision.
The jury sentenced Matt Baker to 65 years in prison. And finally, Carrie's mother has a chance to confront him directly.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today?
So what does Matt have to say from behind bars?
Yeah, we asked him to give him a call.
It's a sentence of the court that you be confined for a term of 65 years. There's some victim impact statements given by the family of the victim. You may proceed.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today? For a little while, okay?
But she did talk to him directly, and he looked down.
Matt, she loved you. And then you took her from us, Matt. You discarded her like she was yesterday's trash. You murdered the mother of your children. But love trumps evil. I don't know why, but I felt pity for him.
I truly believe in my innocence. I believe the jury made a mistake in this.
After his sentencing, 2020 speaks with Matt Baker again, this time in prison, where he finally admits to his affair with Vanessa, but continues to maintain his innocence.
I'm coming clean on the lying about Vanessa. I made a mistake. I'm human. I made a mistake there. I should not have ever got involved in that. I was having a tough spot in my marriage, and I took the chicken way out. But I would never have hurt my wife. I never did. I never laid a hand on her, ever.
Their mother was erased from them. They need to know she loved them. And she didn't leave them by choice.
A year and a half after Matt's conviction, Linda was given custody of her granddaughters.
It was a long journey for the girls to understand what had actually happened to their mother.
Carrie Baker didn't kill herself. She was murdered.
He was a Baptist pastor, preacher.
He was a predator.
I think he's a dark angel.
That you may fear the Lord your God.
You get to be the hero during daylight and sneak around in the dark and be evil.
What do you make of the fact that now, nearly 20 years after the case, Matt Baker still maintains his innocence?
He's one of those people that can just lie and believe in himself that he's innocent.
The real hero in this is Linda Doolin. She fought for her child.
A mother. A mother's will.
It's strong.
Determination.
There's nothing like it, really.
It touches you.
It does.
Why?
Because I have children. And these are hard things. Linda Doolin is a brave, strong woman. I'll always admire that about her.
We love each other, and we knew Carrie did not take her life, and we weren't going to sit back until somebody would listen to us.
She was an amazing mother, and she would fight for any of us. And I just wanted everybody to know the truth.
Carrie's family is still so heartbroken over their loss, but committed to remembering the joy she brought them all. We should point out tonight that Matt Baker hasn't seen his daughter since he went to prison, but he hopes they'll visit one day.
As for Baker, David, he has exhausted all of his state appeals. For an inside look at tonight's 2020, join me for our brand new podcast, 2020, The After Show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.